Hey guys, it's that time of year, fellas. Happy Mercury Retrograde. I hope you are well, or as well as you possibly can be, possibly can be. It's your girl Jazzy. I want to immediately, hi, good morning. I want to immediately apologize for this sweater. I feel like I am in such a desperate need of fall that the minute it got to the 70s over here, I was like, well, let's go ahead and pull out the ugliest sweater that I own and let's live in it. So anyway, I hope you are all well. It's early for me. I didn't expect anyone to actually be here live. Good morning. Because we're all in different time zones, but I wanted to hop on because I woke up with a ton of energy and there is so much to talk about because Mercury retrograde is upon us, honey. It actually, so Mercury goes retrograde or it stations retrograde on the 9th, September 9th, but we've been in the shadow period for the last 1.5 to 2 weeks, and I'm curious to know if you guys have been feeling the shadow period because I feel like this was the most shadowy Mercury retrograde periods of all Mercury retrogrades. I feel like I just went through a Mercury retrograde, so to know that I'm only entering it is a little bit disheartening, but I'm going to talk about this retrograde, what it's going to feel like, how to work with it, how it will affect us via rising sign, and a little bit about like the rest of the cosmic weather because we also have a full moon on Saturday. And so, yeah, and also how I'm approaching it because I'm being really intentional with this retrograde season. Disclaimer, spoiler alert, Mercury is not the only planet retrograde right now. We got a lot of planetary homies doing a little retrograde dance. So it's a time and a period that is an invitation for stillness and for pausing, limiting distraction, returning inward, having some really introspective conversations and sort of regrouping, revitalizing, reassessing, especially when it comes to our relationships in different areas of our lives. I'll get into it, but the first thing that I want to say, how I have prepped my approach to this retrograde season is with a series of journaling prompts that I just shared on the Instagram. But if you don't see them or if you want me to reiterate them, the journaling prompts that I've been answering like one a day, and like every single prompt has been forcing me to excavate further into the depths of my subconscious. But I wanted to share them because I think that these are really, really, really good prompts to do before tomorrow's commencement of Mercury retrograde, because it's going to give you some clarity on like, okay, what do I need to be sitting with during the season? Because I'll get into it, but I really would strongly encourage everyone to, in some area of their lives, limit distraction and return to a state of like very limited accessibility, limited stimulation, staying at home. I mean, we're just as cyclical as the earth. And the fact that this Mercury retrograde, alongside so many other planetary retrogrades, Jupiter, Neptune, Mars going retrograde as well, I think it has just this element of like, okay, we have just lived a lot of delicious, just overstimulating life. How are we going to come home and integrate what you've learned? Excavate. Oh, girl. Oh, there's nothing left. But anyway, so the prompts that I shared that I've been working on is, who do I want to be and what needs to get done to move closer to that? Am I being led by survival or pleasure, and how can I recalibrate? Where have I been seeing things through my own bias versus the reality of them? And I'm going to pause there because that is a prompt. If you're going to like do what I've been doing, which is working with a prompt like every day, I would at the soonest work with that one because the full moon in Pisces is happening on Saturday. And what Pisces and Libra, which is the sign that Mercury is going retrograde in, have in common is sort of this, Pisces is a Venusian, but it has that element of Venusian-led signs where you can just look at life through a rose-colored lens and be blinded by what you want to see versus what the truth of it is. And we're going to especially apply this to relationships because Libra does rule relationships. But also in any area of your life, if you're looking at something for what it could be versus what the truth of it is, which for me is definitely relationships, but also I have been considering getting my master's, and I think I'm thinking of what school will be in my mind as something versus what it will actually be and the work that it'll entail. And that doesn't mean that I shouldn't do it, but rather let me really be honest with myself about like how much it's going to take of me. So that's like an example of like, where are you looking at things to honor a narrative that soothes your soul or a narrative that feels safer versus like what the truth of it is. But anyway, Moving on. Where do I need to be more discerning with my accessibility? This is a big one because, like I said, Mercury is so hyper focused right now on relationships, and you want to make sure that as you're sort of surveying the quality of your relationships and who you are in relationship with, you want to look at who has too much access to me and who maybe deserves more intentional nourishment, especially when it comes to the relationship that you have with yourself. What have I learned about what I truly want and how am I going to integrate that? Where is there pleasure in my life and where is there resistance? How can I adjust? And which fears, relationships, or obligations have I been willingly allowing to drain me? There's more, LOL. What are my non-negotiables about who I am and the life I'm choosing to live? Non-negotiables is a really, really key word there. What am I not willing to compromise on when it comes to who I am and the kind of life that I want to live and the laws that I'm governed by? And have I been projecting my wounds or fears onto people or circumstances, and how can I recalibrate? So those are some journaling prompts that have really been so helpful for me. They've been breaking me open. And I would invite you to work with them as we enter this retrograde season, which will be lasting. I mean, like I said, we have a lot of planets retrograde, and they're all sort of doing one cosmic uniform dance of like, sit your ass down and think about what's next. Or feel your way through what's next. But Mercury in particular is retrograde from September 9th until October 1st. And what's beautiful about this is that from, I believe, the 1st, I have it written down, the way I can't say anything. It'll be from the 9th to the 23rd, it'll be retrograde in the sign of Libra, but from the 23rd to the 2nd, it'll move into Virgo. So it's going to be hitting 2 houses for you. So I'll go through what the themes and the elements are for both, but overall, here's some info on Mercury retrograde. The first thing I want to say is the obvious. Be very careful driving, right? Be extra aware, be extra cautious. Don't speed, don't text and drive, right? We love that for us. We love being safe on the road. We love being safe little road rangers. Also recognize the fact that you're going to need to have patience when it comes to conversations. Miscommunications may be happening right now. People from your past returning, technology failing, all of the good stuff, which is wild that Apple debuted their new phone yesterday, because I was like, girlies, we don't have astrologers on the team? But I mean, sure. Anyway, those are the normal things that come alongside with Mercury retrograde. But when this retrograde is in emphasis under the sign of Libra and also alongside so many other retrogrades, the hyper focus right now is, like I already mentioned, coming into a space not just of solitude, but intentional solitude and intentional isolation. Now, I just made a video on this on YouTube about intentional singlehood and the difference between being single versus being intentionally single, which if you feel called to watch that, you can. But I would apply that to every area of your life when it comes to, for example, if you have been really, really, really creatively expressive over the summer and now you're being called to sort of pause and integrate everything that you learned, review what worked, what didn't, what felt good, what didn't, what was draining, what was energizing, to not only just stop for the sake of stopping and resting for the sake of resting, but also use that time of pause to really review and recycle and revisit and recalibrate, and applying that to every area of your life that you see fit. In a second, I'll go through the rising signs and where it'll be for you, but just in general, take this time to pause. I know that I'm really applying it to my dating life, honestly. I feel like I had a lot of debauchery happen over the summer, and it was important. I think we need our debauchery seasons, but I'm recognizing the fact that I need to be in a space of very limited accessibility. Also my relationship with Instagram and how much of me I'm sharing. I understand the beauty in that, and I'm also kind of reeling back in and doing a little pause and assessing what feels good to share, what doesn't. All those things. So definitely use I think when astrology is a story and when the cosmos are doing a dance, it's all choreographed for a reason. And I think that all these planets are going retrograde because we really do need to work alongside the earth seasons, and entering our own fall period means allowing our skin to be shed, not by continuing to run and just figuring it out along the way, but really taking the time to rest and catch our breath and figure out, okay, what have I learned and where am I going to go from there? Now, yes, what I think is really beautiful about this is that Libra is a sign that rules, obviously, fairness and justice. And so we want to really approach with a new set of eyes our relationship with conflict, and recognizing whether or not when we experience conflict, just what our response to it is. Do we flee? Do we shut down? Do we deflect? Are we defensive? But ultimately, are we resolution oriented? And so understanding that there may be some miscommunications that arise during this time, especially when it comes to the people that may re-enter your life. This doesn't always mean exes, but a lot of the times it does mean exes. But I think if people are going to come back into your life, and also if old conflicts are going to arise regardless, right? Pay attention to your dreams, because they may be coming up in your dreams. Girl, the communication today is not it. But of course, it's Mercury Retrograde. The point here is that when things resurface, or when they're called, when you're being called to revisit certain things, understanding that this is a beautiful opportunity for healing. I think there's not enough emphasis on how retrogrades are such fertile soil for healing. I think that we cannot heal when we are in constant motion, and when you don't pay attention enough to just what you notice when you're in the stillness, then you can't actually use that as a resource and as a tool for moving forward with intentionality and with discernment. So I would really invite you to work to approach any conflicts that may arise, not only with others, but also with yourself, with a resolution-oriented mind. So when I experience or approach conflict, am I just wanting to be heard? Am I just wanting to say the smartest thing? Or, just sort of like, do I want to win versus do I want to reach a place of understanding and healing and resolution? So understanding that may be a theme that arises right now, and really getting a more intimate understanding of what your relationship with conflict is and why it is the way that it is. So there are some people, like myself, who avoid confrontation at all costs, because conflict growing up was a very scary thing for me. The way that I witnessed it, conflict makes me very uncomfortable. And I'm recognizing the fact that because of that, I have had very flimsy boundaries in order to avoid conflict. So I would let myself be walked all over for the sake of avoiding conflict. So recognizing the fact that what is my response to conflict right now, and where does that stem from, and how can I heal that? And approaching any conflict that arises right now with discernment and with intentionality. Your relationships, also just in general, your relationships are going to get reviewed right now, because Libra is a social sign, and it rules, how we relate to others. And so you're going to want to be really, 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 I keep using this word, darling, but discerning with who's in your life, who has access to you, how much access they have, understanding that not everything needs to be black or white. It doesn't mean to get rid of every single person that doesn't align with who you've grown into, but understanding that maybe they don't have access to you on weekdays, or maybe those are just your friends who you tell this amount of information to, but not that amount of information to. Really just categorizing, compartmentalizing, and just being aware of where do the people in my life fit, who deserves access, who deserves less access, and who deserves no access, and being really, really honest with yourself. Honesty is another theme, which is funny because honesty is the thing that I've been sitting with since Virgo season. And it's funny that it's coming up for this retrograde as well. But really recognizing, where are you being honest and where are you being dishonest, in the obvious ways, but also in the sort of subconscious ways as well. In what ways are you just being dishonest simply by not living fully immersed in your truth, or not speaking the fullness of your truth, or just where are you being dishonest, and how can honesty be a way that sets you a bit more free? So I'm so scatterbrained, but I feel like I've been scatterbrained since the shadow period of this retrograde. So just understand, also have as much patience with yourself during this period as possible, because there's going to be moments when you're slipping over your own words, or where things are delayed. Retrogrades are typically just times of great delay, and understanding that anything that just isn't going as quickly as you would want is a testament to where you're at with your relationship with control, and also with patience, and understanding that everything is always happening in divine timing, and if anything is slowing down, it's because there's something that needs to be looked at more deeply, or something that needs to be integrated, or something that needs to be more deeply looked at. So just, have patience with yourself and with situations. Your relationship with illusion. I feel like this is a really big one to be working with because, like I said, Libra and also this full moon that's happening on Saturday in Pisces is an invitation to look at where are we looking at situations through the lens of our own bias and through a rose-colored perception of it versus the reality of it. And you want to apply that to every area of your life and really look at where can I find the balance, right? Because Libra is all about balance. And balance, I feel like, is the most difficult thing to master. I find myself really struggling with balance, but because I live in extremes, I'm a fixed dominant sign. But anyway, where can I find the balance between being immersed in my daydreams and letting them be as boundless and as expansive and as loud and large as possible versus where can I find grounding in reality and take tangible and logical steps to build that for myself? How can you sort of marry the two? And recognize in what ways or in which habits am I feeding too much of the illusion, or where am I too disconnected from illusion and so, just hyper critical of the possibilities of my reality that I'm not letting myself expand at all. So finding yourself in a healthy middle and understanding and being honest with yourself about where you're at in the spectrum. Yes, and another scatterbrained. Another point to the relationships thing that I was saying before. What I think is really important about this retrograde that I would invite us to sit with is, and I've been journaling on this a lot. When it comes to reviewing your relationships, you want to be honest about what aspect of your relationships are you not happy with, are you not comfortable with, whether it's in individual relationships or just in general, and be honest about what role you are playing in the dynamics not being fully nutritious to your needs, not meeting your needs, right? And so an example of that would be, should I give my own? So I have had situations or even just situationships where I've really wanted more commitment from someone or more intentionality or just, I wanted more from somebody. And really placing all the blame on them because of the fact that they weren't giving that to me, but then recognizing the fact that they were just mirroring my energy because in an effort to protect myself and thinking, well, you should just give that to me anyway, so I'm not going to ask for it. I was being very elusive and very evading speaking on my needs or speaking on my boundaries and then getting upset at the fact that my needs and boundaries weren't being met or honored. So recognizing the fact that what role am I playing in the relational dynamics that I no longer have room for in my life, that I've outgrown. Understanding that every energetic exchange in our lives is a direct mirror of where we're at and what we're feeling and what we're thinking and what our belief systems are. So if there is any conflict in any of your relationships or any of your obligations or attachments, if there's conflict in your work, if there's conflict in your home or on any part of this journey, understanding that it's indicative of something or a belief or a habit or an attachment going on within, that if you were to sort of bring your hyper focus inward and mend that, it'll bleed into and mirror the situation outside of you. I hope that makes sense. So yes, miscommunications, look out for technology mishaps, your relationship with illusions, and the people in your life. Understanding that change is inevitable during any retrograde season, so just move with the tides right now. Move with the tides. Change, especially because this is not just Mercury. We've got Mars, we've got Neptune, we've got Jupiter. I don't know, I think Pluto is retrograde as well. I think that is also why the best bet is to be as still and as disconnected from distraction as possible right now, because you'll hear more clearly and you'll have more clarity when it comes to what changes are calling on some action from you versus which changes are calling for you to surrender to them. I went through such a crazy August, and I'm at a point, you know what I did? 2 days ago, I woke up, I did my meditation, I went to yoga, I went to the spa, I came back, I did some work, I washed my hair, I cleaned the whole apartment, I cooked myself some curry chicken, and I watched Smart Guy, and I went to bed, and it was the best day ever. And I'm recognizing the fact that I'm in a season where I just want to be the best lover, the best companion, and the best partner to myself, and only see friends that feel like home, only go to social situations that would nourish and feed me back. I'm not on any dating apps. I'm not exerting any energy outside of anything that doesn't directly and immediately feed me back. And it's in the limited distraction, in the volume turned down, that I'm actually able. And it's funny, I love that came up, because the card that I pulled for this week is Tune In to Tune Out. This is from Just Be Inspired's Animal deck. And the minute I pulled this, I was like 100% absolutely. Also, the green is giving very much heart chakra, and it's all about like tuning in by tuning out. And also applying that to, and this is funny because this is something that I've been reading about this retrograde as well, being really discerning with what you are ingesting when it comes to like your social media, what you're watching, understanding that we're really energetically susceptible right now. And so, yeah, just really being, I keep using this word, but discerning with what you are pouring your energy into, what you are allowing yourself to consume, and who you are showing up for, why you're showing up, what you are showing up for, and how it's immediately affecting you. So yes. What else? Yeah, I'll be retreating inwardly. Be radically protective of your energy and your energetic reserves right now. Reviewing your relationship with conflict. Find a way to heal. Find a path of conflict resolution. And heal anyone that returns into your life right now. I mean, we're not all gonna have exes come back. You're either gonna have an ex come back, or you're gonna be the ex that goes back. But just things from the past may arise, and sometimes they just arise in our dreams. So also pay attention to your dreams right now. That's where a lot of communication happens during retrograde seasons, which is exciting. Where do your boundaries need to soften, and where do they need to be louder? This is relative to the accessibility that you want to give the internet, the accessibility that you want to give the people in your life, your co-workers, your family members, your friends, your social groups. Patience with the inevitable delays. Where are you seeing things through a rose-colored lens? Triple read emails. I had that written down. Triple read your emails and any digital communications, your texts. So yes, that is basically the gist of it. I'm now going to quickly run through where this Mercury retrograde emphasis will be in your life relative to your rising sign. But before I even do that, I just want to once again say this is going to apply to all areas of your life, because we have a lot of retrograde planets right now. So there is this overall sense of coming back home to self, reclamation of your sovereignty, of your time, of your energy, journaling, sitting still, being really intentional with your solitude, not being alone just to be alone, but like being aware of the fact that I'm alone right now and I can use this time to journal. I can use this time to reassess. I can really tune into my body and be aware of like, how does it feel when this person texts me? Am I in survival mode? I feel like me trying to limit how much I share of myself, but also being like, I need to for context. But like, I had recently, through sitting still, I realized how important it is that in my romantic relationships particularly, that my inner child is happy. I feel like I never really checked in with my inner child when it comes to my romantic relationships. It was always like, how's my higher self doing? How's my spiritual self doing? How's my sexual self doing? But I never checked in with like, is my inner child happy here? And I think what's immediately indicative of an inner child being happy is my nervous system calm? Because if you're in that survival mode, if you're reading in between lines, if you're overthinking, if you're, not wanting to be too accessible, but like if you just feel like you are surviving through a relationship, your inner child is panicking, because while your adult brain can sort of like find the logic in it, your inner child is like, why do I have to perform for this love? It's teaching me something about my worth. So this is vague, but I say that to say that like I wouldn't have arrived at the conclusion that like, oh shit, first and foremost, when it comes to dating, I need to make sure that my inner child is happy. Had I not felt an emotion and sat with it and limited distraction, limited outside advice, right? Seeking counsel from anyone outside of your own intuition. Had I not made this time and space for me to be quiet and hear myself, I wouldn't have arrived at that conclusion that I think is so important for me. So do with that what you will. Anyway, so for my Aries risings, this is going to be in your 6th and your 7th house. So 7th house is relationships and 6th house is, right, like I said, overview really quickly. September 9th through the 23rd, it'll be in Libra, and then 23rd through the 2nd, it'll be in Virgo. So we're going to have 2 houses hit. So yes, your 6th and 7th house. 7th house is relationships, and 6th house is your routines, your job, what you're doing on a day-to-day. So slowing down in those areas. Taurus rising, this will be in your 5th and 6th house. So like I said, routines, what you're doing every single day, your job. And 5th house is your creative expression, your inner child, dating, romance, all of that. If you're a Gemini rising, this will be in your 4th and 5th house. So that's home, foundation, family, the home you have within and the home you have externally, perhaps considering moving, or considering no longer moving. And then also, like I said, the 5th house, so creative expression, dating, all that good stuff. So if you're a Cancer rising, I'm like running through this because I feel like I'm also already talking for a very long time. Cancer rising, this is going to be in your 4th and your 3rd house. So once again, home, the home you have within, the home you have externally, also your ancestral lineage, your maternal lineage, your relationship with any maternal figures. And the 3rd house is communication, your written communication, your verbal communication, also like intimate community, elementary school years, siblings, any areas or anything in your life pertaining to those areas are going to have, sorry, I pushed the plant closer to the sun, have a time of recalibration. If you're a Leo rising, darling, this is going to be in your 3rd and your 2nd house. So once again, siblings, communication, written, if you feel called to put yourself and your thoughts out there in a written format, writing something, this would be a beautiful time to do that, or to sit with why you want to do that and to start, maybe slowly committing. That's the thing, you can use this time of solitude to like more deeply commit to what you know is nourishing you back. So if you're working on a book or if you're working on a creative project, maybe you have been in a period of not doing, and maybe this retrograde is an invitation to like limit distractions so that you can do, right? But yeah, so 3rd and 2nd. 2nd is your relationship with, oh, sorry, I got an email. Your relationship with your values, your work, the physical, tangible things, how you value yourself, and also just like money. What's your relationship with money? Do you want to slow down on how much money you're spending, or reassess your relationship with being intentional about your money? If you are a Virgo rising, this will be in your 2nd house. So once again, those possessions, money, tangible goods, your worth, your value, and also your 1st house, right? Once it moves into Virgo, it'll be in your 1st house. So your sense of self, who you are and how you're showing up in the world, and if it's authentic and honest, and just is your identity reflecting who you've grown into, or are you still wearing old skin? If you're a Libra rising, this will also, for the majority of the month, be in your 1st house. So like I said, your identity, your truth, are you living in your truth? But it'll also move into your 12th house. It's an intense time for Libra risings, honestly. Your 12th house rules your subconscious world, your dreams, your relationship with isolation. So you may, if you have listened to me say it's a time for intentional solitude and not being around too many people and being with yourself, and that was like, if that evoked any sort of visceral reaction in you, this is an invitation to look at, why do I have any sort of resistance when it comes to being alone? What does that say about what I'm avoiding looking at? And can I take that as an invitation to dance a bit with my solitude and with being alone and healing my relationship with being alone? If you're a Scorpio rising, you'll also be invited to look at your relationship with being alone, though I will say most Scorpio risings, if anything, prefer being alone. So if anything, maybe it's an invitation to look at, do I have a fear when it comes to intimacy or relational intimacy or being amongst people outside of my control? So 12th house, right, is isolation, but also 11th house. So I guess it's a similar theme of like 11th house has a lot to do with your social groups, your social dynamics, how people experience you, also your relationship with the internet. So this will be a time to really look at that. If you're Sagittarius rising, like myself, this will be in your 11th and your 10th house. So 11th house is social groups, your friendships, really looking at your relationships, right? Especially platonic ones. And like the communities that you're part of and the roles that you play in community. But this will also be in our 10th house. So this is, and I'm fucking feeling this. Your career, your public image, what you are doing, how people are experiencing or ingesting you. Also paternal lineage, your relationship with any paternal figures in your life, and your own divine masculine. If you are a Capricorn rising, this will also be in your 10th house. So everything that I just said about career, how people experience you, are you living in the fullest potential of what you want to offer to the world? And also just, I guess, reflecting on like, what do I want to offer to the world and why do I want to offer it? Really being married to your why and being quiet enough to hear what your true why is and not lying to yourself if your why is something more egoic than it really is. Just going to say that. Also, if you're a Cap rising, this will be in your 9th house. So this is your relationship with divinity, travel, studying, and yeah, authority figures, institutions, those kind of structures. So yeah, also Aquarius rising, so you'll also have that in the 9th house. So institutions, education, also like philosophy, just your relationship with what you think about the world and your bigger belief system. And this will also be in your 8th house. So this is your subconscious, your fears, your resources, healing, intimacy, rebirth, sex, everything that's taboo, and what may make you feel uncomfortable or scared is going to get revisited right now. And lastly, if you're Pisces rising, this will be in your 8th house. So once again, your fears, what's going on inwardly, your subconscious world, and also just your relationship with like external resources. So like other people's money. And then it'll be in your 7th house as well, just like Aries. So your relationships. We're all going to get relationship reviews, but I will say if you're having a 7th house transit, your romantic relationships, which I'm having Mars retrograde in my 7th house, and I'm feeling that. But yeah, really looking at sitting with your habits, your cycles, and your relationships, and being discerning about like, oh, I'm playing a role in this being what it is, and I no longer want it to be the way that it is. Or this is working and I want more of this. So anyway, it's a brief overview of your rising signs. Mercury retrograde. Saturday is the full moon in Pisces. I'm going to share something about a ritual that I'm going to do for the full moon in Pisces. If you feel called to do that as well. But otherwise, have a great retrograde season. I'm excited about it. It's nothing to fear. If we work with it, it'll work for us. So that is why I do this, so that you know how to work with it. So I'm sending you all my love. If you ever want to work with me one-on-one, you can do so by reaching out to me on Instagram or on my website. And I'll see you next time. Definitely do the journaling prompts. Okay, I'm never gonna take the sweater off. I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. Okay, bye guys.